For many years, the world seemed to walk in darkness without receiving a new warning from heaven. Ancient apparitions, such as Fatima, La Salette, or Garabandal, remained in the memory of a few faithful who still believed in the prophecies. But for the majority, the Virgin Mary had become a symbol of passive devotion, a distant memory. No one expected that, after so much time, she would speak again with such urgent and shocking force. However, that day arrived. And when it came, it was like a thunderclap that tore the heavens of the human soul. Why now? Why not before? Why not in the midst of the great wars, the pandemics, the moral crises that consume humanity? The answer seems as mysterious as it is clear. Because we have crossed an invisible threshold, because something has been activated in the spiritual time of history, because this is the moment appointed from the beginning, and heaven can no longer remain silent. The new revelation of the Virgin Mary did not come by chance. According to witnesses close to the site of the manifestation, whose exact location is being kept secret for spiritual reasons, it all began with a strange feeling of emptiness in the air. The sky darkened, cloudless, windless, as if the world were holding its breath, and then a luminous presence descended, enveloped in a light that did not burn but pierced the soul. The Mother of God spoke. And when she did, her words weren't gentle as in other apparitions. This time her voice was firm, filled with urgency, like that of a mother who sees her child walking toward an abyss and cries out one last time before losing him. It wasn't a message of easy consolation, but of loving confrontation. It was a call to awakening, because many live asleep, ignoring the signs from heaven that are no longer symbolic, but evident. The world has rejected the heart of my Son. It has replaced truth with noise, and now comes the time when all will be exposed, he said with tears in his eyes. The impact was such that one of those present fell to his knees, weeping uncontrollably. Another began to loudly confess his sins, as if facing judgment. And they were not alone. Thousands felt it at the same time, even though they were miles away. This first apparition marked the beginning of a series of messages that will change the spiritual history of the world. This is no exaggerated statement. What is being revealed from that day on is not limited to personal devotion. It is an intervention from heaven to prepare humanity for something imminent. The terms are clear. We are in decisive times, and whoever does not awaken now may not have another chance. St. Michael, the great prince of the heavenly host, was also seen by witnesses. Although he did not speak during this first apparition, his presence was described as imposing, guarding the Virgin with an invisible sword of fire. It was a clear sign that the spiritual battle had intensified, and that these were no longer just minor warnings, but the beginning of the fulfillment of ancient secrets. It is no coincidence that tears were part of this revelation. The Virgin does not cry in vain. Her tears are the language of heaven when words no longer suffice. And this time, she wept for the church, for broken families, for children without faith, for lukewarm priests, for souls who have stopped praying. But she also wept for those who can still return, for those who are about to fall and need a hand to awaken them. Whoever listens to this message with their heart will know it is not a fabrication. The soul recognizes the truth when heaven speaks, and many are already feeling a restlessness within themselves they hadn't had before. A need to seek, to pray, to leave behind the noise of this world to hear what comes from above. This isn't just another devotion, this is a living revelation, and whoever ignores it might not hear the next call. Comment, I believe in messages from heaven. If you too feel something is moving in the spiritual world, and stay until the end. Because in the next message, you will discover the exact place where the Virgin Mary has manifested herself again, and why that place holds a secret that no one imagined. It wasn't in a great cathedral. It wasn't in a renowned sanctuary. It wasn't in Fatima, Lourdes, or Medjugorje. The new manifestation of the Virgin Mary occurred in a place that no one would have imagined, a forgotten corner, far from the cameras, without crowds or pilgrims. And yet, from that secluded spot, heaven spoke again. A silent but unstoppable revelation began to unfold from there, like a seed sown in secret soil. Why that place? Why now? What does this mean? The location, which for reasons of spiritual protection has been disclosed only to a small number of faithful, was described as a semi-abandoned field near an unnamed hill. There, among ancient stones and uncultivated land, a group of young people were praying the rosary. They weren't looking for miracles, nor were they waiting for signs. They were simply praying with an open heart. It was then that heaven responded. According to those who were present, a warm breeze enveloped them, even though the weather was cold. The air seemed to stand still, and a light, whiter than any sun, descended without casting a shadow. In the midst of that clarity, the figure of a woman dressed in blue and white appeared on a rock. She didn't speak at first. She just looked, her face filled with tenderness and pain. Her eyes were not of this world. And suddenly, in that silence that contained everything, she began to speak. "This is the place I have chosen to raise a voice in the midst of the spiritual desert," he said. "Here where there are no temples, I will raise a tower of prayer. Here where no one looks, I will speak so that the world may hear." The words were simple, but they carried an eternal weight. The Virgin Mary did not seek crowds. She did not choose grand altars. She chose hiding, and that contains a powerful message. Heaven is not moved by fame, but by faith. The place was chosen not for its beauty, nor for its history, but for its availability, because there, in the middle of nowhere, there were hearts willing to listen. This detail is not minor. God's history with humanity is full of apparitions in unknown places. Moses encountered God in a bush in the desert. Elijah heard his voice in a cave, and the Savior of the world was born in a manger. Whenever the world becomes saturated with noise and pride, heaven chooses the hidden to reveal itself, and 2025 is no exception. The Virgin has chosen the most unexpected place to deliver the most urgent message. The messages that began there have not stopped. Every week in the same place and at the same time, the light reappears. It doesn't always speak, but its presence is so real that many fall to their knees, unable to rise. Some have heard whispers in their souls. Others have seen with the eyes of the Spirit a battle being waged over that site. And all agree on one thing: that place is no longer common ground. It is an altar hidden from heaven. The choice of this location is also a warning. Because while many seek answers in the spectacular, the viral, the visible, the Virgin reminds us that the kingdom of God is manifested in the small, the hidden, in what is despised by the world. She is telling us, do not wait for signs where the world places them. Listen where heaven speaks. This message resonates especially with those who feel their faith has been ignored, that their prayers have gone unheard. Our Lady is saying, you who feel forgotten are the place I have chosen to manifest myself. Every open heart can become a new place of revelation. The message is not only geographical, it is spiritual. God wants to appear in your life, in your home, in your night. Many who have secretly traveled to this place, guided only by dreams or spiritual impulses, claim that the atmosphere there changes completely upon entering. The air becomes lighter, the silence deeper, the prayer more fluid. There are testimonies of healings, radical conversions, and family reconciliations that began with a simple visit. But beyond the external miracles, what happens there is an inner miracle. The soul begins to hear again. Could this be the new epicenter of a series of revelations that will mark this generation? Everything seems to indicate yes, and not because of geography, but because of grace. The Virgin has begun to speak from a hidden place, to awaken a sleeping world. St. Michael, although not yet fully manifested at this point, has been sensed by some visionaries as a presence watching from the top of the hill, as if he were already preparing the ground for a greater intervention. It's clear that this apparition is not an isolated event. It's the beginning of something much bigger. The place, however humble it may seem, has been hailed as a prophetic turning point, and anyone who ignores it because of its lack of prestige or beauty could miss the opportunity to hear what God is saying through his mother. Comment: I open my heart to the hidden places of heaven if you also believe that God can speak where no one expects him. And stay tuned, because in the next message you'll learn the exact meaning of the words Our Lady spoke during that first apparition, a message that will shake your soul and could change your life forever. Not everyone was prepared for what they would hear. The atmosphere was already thick with the invisible. The air seemed to vibrate. The trees didn't move, but something deeper stirred inside each person present. It was then that the Virgin spoke, and her words were not soft like the spring wind, but sharp like a sword piercing the soul. Because this is not a time for superficial consolation, it is a time of truth. The main visionary, a young man of barely 18, began to cry even before the Virgin Mary spoke a single word. No one had warned him of what was coming. His name has not been revealed publicly by the Virgin Mary herself, who said that his identity will only be known when the day of the great test arrives. But his testimony, recorded in a handwritten notebook that same night, was confirmed word for word by 3 others present who heard the same thing without having communicated with each other. The message began with a tremor in the ground. It wasn't a physical earthquake, but a spiritual one. The boy fell to his knees, his gaze fixed on the celestial figure. His lips began to tremble, and his voice became an echo that wasn't his alone. What he said didn't seem to come from him. It was the voice of heaven, piercing his human frailty. These were the first words. Children, the time of mercy is coming to an end. My heart bleeds for you. I have pleaded for more time, I have asked the Father for an extension, but humanity has closed its ears and hardened its heart. Now comes the purifying fire. Now comes the hour of separation. Those present fell into absolute silence. No one dared to breathe. One of the seer's companions fainted. Another began to murmur prayers without realizing it. It was as if the soul were breaking from within, as if each word removed an invisible veil from the spirit's eyes. The message continued, Many of my children live as if God did not exist. They build their lives on dust. They worship idols of metal, of flesh, of fame. They have forgotten that all will be judged. They have profaned innocence. They have soiled the altar. They have laughed while my son weeps. These words were not only heard, they were felt. The seer hugged himself, trembling. He cried out, Have mercy, Mother, have mercy. But the Virgin did not stop. There was no hatred in her face, no punishment in her tone. She was a mother speaking with pain, but without withdrawing the truth. Darkness has entered the church. There are pastors who no longer lead, but scatter. There are ministers who no longer offer my son, but their own ego. Many of my people have fallen asleep, and they don't see that the enemy has already crossed the threshold. These words resonated particularly loudly. The faces of those present paled. One of them, a seminarian, began to weep uncontrollably. He later confessed that he had been on the verge of abandoning his vocation, and that at that moment he felt the Virgin looking directly into his eyes. The message wasn't just a warning. There was also a call. Wake up! Return to the rosary. Open the gospel. Fast. Clean your homes. Bless your children. A great warning is coming from heaven. Everyone will see their soul as God sees it. But for many it will be too late if they do not convert now. Upon hearing this, the seer fell completely to the ground, as if an invisible force had knocked him down. His body remained motionless for several minutes. Only sobs could be heard. No one could speak. No one wanted to move, because what they had just heard wasn't a story. It was a reality deeper than anything this world has to offer. After several minutes of silence, the Virgin slowly disappeared, as if dissolving into the light. But before doing so, she left one last sentence. "I will return soon, and with me will come one who judges justly." These words were written tremblingly by the seer, who could barely hold the pencil. His hands were still cold, and his eyes kept watering. He said, "I don't know how I'm still alive, but I know I must say this. I don't want fame. I don't want attention. I just want you to listen before it's too late." Since that night, the messages have continued, some gentler, others even harsher, but they all have the same tone: urgency, truth, profound love that does not condone sin. The young visionary has remained in seclusion, guided by a spiritual director. He has declined interviews, requested anonymity, and only allows the messages to be published with the consent of his confessor. The local church has begun a prudent investigation, without making premature judgments. Meanwhile, spiritual fruits are already beginning to be seen. People who had not prayed before have returned to the rosary. Divided families have begun to reunite. Long-delayed confessions have multiplied, not out of fear, but because of the truth it awakens. Because when heaven speaks, something within us responds. And this time, what has been said cannot be ignored. Comment, "I open my heart to Mary's message," if you too feel touched by these words. Don't turn away now, because in the next message, St. Michael will enter the scene. And what he will reveal will shake even those who think they are prepared. What came next was even more shocking. Not everyone could witness it with their eyes, but everyone felt it deep within. After the Virgin's shocking message, while her last words were still resonating in the souls of those present, a radiance pierced the sky soundlessly, like a column of light descending from on high. It was then that the Prince of the heavenly host manifested himself, Saint Michael the Archangel. He didn't come merely as a messenger. He came as a warrior, as a sentinel of the end times. With an invisible sword of fire, his outstretched wings covered the sky like a spiritual shield. He didn't speak through the seer. His voice, according to witnesses, was heard directly inside the chest, like a thunderclap that broke not the air, but the heart. "Time is running out," he declared in a commanding voice. "The cup of divine patience is overflowing. The enemy has entered the altars. The earth groans under the weight of sin. The armies of heaven have been called to the final battle. And you, children of light, will you remain asleep?" Each word resounded with force. It wasn't a threat, but a warning, a call to wake up. St. Michael didn't come to destroy, but to warn. His presence was so powerful that many fell to the ground, unable to stand. Some screamed, others began to pray in languages they had never spoken before. It was a collective shudder, as if something invisible had broken in the veil that separates the visible from the eternal. He continued, "You have been given time. You have been given your word. You have been given bloodshed for you. And yet many walk like blind people in the darkness of this world. Now heaven reveals its secrets. Now judgment begins in the house of God." The archangel's words connected directly with the Virgin's previous message. But while she spoke with wounded tenderness, Saint Michael spoke with heavenly firmness. He was the sword that cuts, the fire that purifies, the voice that summons the soldiers of faith. His eyes, described as living flames, looked through the soul. The warning is near. The great light will show every soul its status before God, and no one will be able to escape. All will be exposed. Masks will fall. What is hidden will be revealed, and many, seeing themselves, will ask to die. But there is still time. There is still redemption. There is still a cross. No one who heard those words was left unchanged. Even those who had doubted, those who had come to the place out of curiosity or accompanying others, were left in tears. A man who hadn't prayed since childhood confessed to having seen his life flash before his eyes like a mirror. A woman who had renounced God for years felt an inner voice telling her, "Come back before it's too late." St. Michael didn't come with religious symbols. He didn't come as a figurehead. He came as the leader of the final battle between light and darkness. And his message was as clear as it was cutting. The battle has already begun. Lukewarm souls will be swept away. Those who do not decide today will be defeated tomorrow. There is no more time for indifference. There is no more time to negotiate with sin. He who belongs to Christ, let him say it with his life. And he who does not, let him prepare to face him. These words marked a before and after. It was no longer a revelation for a few faithful. It was a universal, spiritual, cosmic proclamation. The echoes of that message began to resonate in distant hearts, in people who had never heard of the apparition, as if St. Michael had unleashed a spiritual call that crossed borders, languages, and religions. Subsequent testimonies recorded surprising phenomena: people who dreamed of flaming swords, families who felt a protective presence in their homes, young people who decided to abandon their lives of sin without having heard the message directly. It's as if the archangel had awakened the battlefield within each person's soul. Since then, the figure of St. Michael has been present in every apparition, sometimes in silence, sometimes as a sentinel. But his mission is clear: to protect the faithful remnant, prepare the way for the warning, and call the chosen ones to take their place in the spiritual struggle that can no longer be postponed. The Virgin has allowed 3 actions to be revealed that St. Michael is now promoting in the faithful. Consecrate yourself to his protection daily, asking for discernment in the midst of confusion. Urgently confess hidden sins, especially those that have been justified by custom. Build prayer altars in homes, because soon there will be places where it will not be possible to pray freely. These 3 actions are not optional devotions. They are heavenly strategies for resisting what is coming. St. Michael doesn't embellish the message. He reinforces it. He is the sword alongside the cloak. He is judgment alongside consolation. He is the hour alongside eternity. Comment: I join the army of light if you too decide to respond to St. Michael's call. Don't leave yet, because the next message will reveal the 3 dates set by heaven, which will mark a before and after in the history of humanity. Dates that are already on the divine calendar. And that could be closer than you imagine. After St. Michael's shocking message, one thing became clear in the hearts of all who heard. This is not a symbolic or distant revelation. What heaven is revealing now has dates. It has precise days marked on high, and those days are much closer than many imagine. The Virgin Mary, in one of her most recent manifestations, said with a voice trembling with compassion, but firm as a sword, "There are 3 days that have been written in the Father's book, and in them humanity will be tested like never before." The visionary, still shaken by the experience of the previous days, couldn't hold back his tears upon hearing these words. Every time the Virgin mentioned the number 3, his body trembled. He couldn't explain it, but he felt that this number contained a hidden mystery, a promise, and at the same time a warning. According to what was reported by those present, the Virgin raised her gaze to heaven and said, "The first day will be one of light, a light that will not come from the sun. Everything will stop. Every soul will see its interior as God sees it. It will be the great warning. It will not be punishment, but mercy. But many will not endure it, because the truth weighs more than fear. This first day, which Our Lady called the Day of Divine Reflection, will mark a before and after for millions of people. It will be the fulfillment of many prophecies given at Fatima, Garabandal, and Medjugorje. There will be no place to hide. It will not be an astronomical phenomenon, but a spiritual, global, and personal one. Every human being, children, youth, adults, and the elderly, will experience an inner illumination that will reveal the true state of their soul. She continued, The second day will be one of silence, a silence that will scream louder than any words. It will be the day of decision. After seeing, you must choose, follow my son, or continue in the darkness. There will be no gray areas. There will be no excuses. Those who remained silent must speak. Those who betrayed will decide whether to return, and the lukewarm will be vomited out. This second day, called by Our Lady the Day of the Open Soul, will be the most critical. There will be no shocking external phenomena, only the weight of truth within each person. It will be the silent test of free will. No one will be forced, but all will be confronted. Many will fall into despair, others will rush to confession, and some, unfortunately, will close their eyes even tighter than before. And then the Virgin revealed the third. The third day will be a day of fire. Heaven and earth will shake. It won't be the end, but it will be like childbirth. Everything will be purified. Prayerless houses will fall. The churches that betrayed will be emptied. The voices that silenced the truth will be silenced, and the little flock will shine brightly. This day, called the Day of the Burning Bush, will not be symbolic. It will be visible, physical, undeniable. There will be natural manifestations, earthquakes, lightning without a storm, a fire that doesn't burn but purifies. In some places the sky will turn red, and not because of human causes. It will be God's signature. It will be the confirmation that what He said is being fulfilled, and that humanity has been called for the last time to awaken. The Virgin Mary didn't give exact dates, but she did leave signs that the faithful will recognize. And these signs are already beginning to be fulfilled. The appearance of a luminous cross in the sky in different parts of the world, the sudden stopping of clocks in places of worship, the inexplicable crying of Marian images in simple homes, prophetic dreams that recur between people who have never met. These signs should not inspire fear, but rather preparation. The Virgin Mary doesn't speak to frighten. She speaks to warn, to protect, to awaken. And these 3 days will be decisive for millions. Whoever ignores these warnings will do so at their own peril. Saint Michael, in a later apparition, confirmed the truth of these days. He said, "The days are numbered. Heaven does not improvise. The righteous will be guided. The lukewarm will be shaken, and the stubborn will weep inconsolably. But there is still time. If you listen now, if you consecrate yourselves, if you fast, if you pray, if you watch, you will be preserved." It's important to understand that these days will not be announced by the media. There will be no human warnings. Only the soul who prays will know how to recognize the moment. Therefore, heaven has insistently requested 3 things: urgent and frequent confession, consecration to the Immaculate Heart of Mary and the Eucharistic Heart of Jesus, daily rosary prayer, especially with family. These 3 seemingly simple practices will be the shield for many during those days. No technology will protect them. No riches will be worth anything. Only the inner light will remain. There are those who mock, there are those who ignore, but there are also those who are listening, and their hearts have already begun to burn. Say, "Lord, prepare me for the 3 days." If you too are willing to be part of the little flock that will not be afraid when the time comes, stay, because the next message will be one of the most important. The Virgin will reveal to us the urgent call to conversion, fasting, reparation, and prayer that will save your family from the coming times. After announcing the 3 days that would change the history of humanity, the Virgin Mary did not leave without first leaving a clear mandate. It was not optional advice, nor a pious suggestion. It was an urgent call, addressed not only to those present, but to the entire world. Fast, pray, make reparation. Because time is no longer time, and heaven is waiting for a response from the sleeping people. The reaction was immediate. Many began to kneel, others to kiss the ground. It wasn't just fear of what had been announced. It was an inner stirring, a voice awakening something dormant deep within. The Virgin, with tears in her eyes, looked lovingly at each one, as if she had known them since before time began. And with a maternal whisper, she said, "I don't come to condemn. I come to awaken. But whoever doesn't awaken now may not hear my voice tomorrow." Since that apparition, the message has spread powerfully through thousands of hearts, not through social media, not through the media, but through the living testimony of transformation. Ordinary people who have begun to pray at 3 a.m. without understanding why. Families who felt the impulse to turn off the television and light a candle before the crucifix. Young people who had never fasted and now offer their breakfasts for the conversion of the world. Something is happening. Something has begun. Our Lady asked for 3 immediate actions, which form a spiritual triad of resistance in the face of prophetic times, not just from food, but fasting from pride, from judgment, from vices, from comfort. A fast that frees up inner space for God to speak. She said, "Fast not to punish yourself, but to free yourself. The soul that does not fast becomes heavy, and it will not be able to fly when the time comes." Heaven has specifically requested Wednesdays and Fridays as days of partial fasting, bread and water when possible, or at least a concrete renunciation, with love, not out of obligation, but as an offering. Every fast becomes a flame in heaven, a spark of light that pierces the darkness of this generation, but not just any prayer, not lifeless, repeated prayers. Our Lady asks for prayer from the heart, living prayer, burning prayer. The Rosary, recited with devotion, is the most powerful sword. She insisted, "The Rosary will save nations, but you must pray it with tears, not as a routine, with your soul, not just your lips." The prayer asked of heaven is intense, persevering, and communal. Families gather every night, blessing one another. Youth groups hold silent vigils. Parents teach their children to speak to God as a friend. It is this prayer that keeps those who will be a refuge for others standing, perhaps the most forgotten, but also the most urgent. Our Lady was clear. Many offenses have wounded the heart of her Son and need to be repaired. It is not enough to ask for forgiveness. It is necessary to offer love for wounded love. She said, "There are souls who cry out without knowing it. To repair is to love in their place. It is to adore those who blaspheme. It is to console those who ignore. It is to ignite light where others spit darkness." Reparation includes Eucharistic adoration, frequent communion, and acts of reparation. It also includes forgiveness offered to one's enemy, silent charity, and renunciation for the conversion of others. Each act of reparation is a stone that rebuilds the fallen wall between heaven and earth. These 3 pillars, fasting, prayer, and reparation, will be the inner refuge of those who listen. There will be no physical place safer than a soul aflame with God. And for this reason, Our Lady never tired of repeating, "Don't look for signs if you're not willing to obey. Don't ask for miracles if you can't bend your knees. Don't expect light if you continue to feed the darkness at home." These words, harsh but full of love, began to transform lives from the first day. People who had strayed from the faith returned with strength. Lukewarm priests began to preach with fire. Entire communities lit the flame of perpetual prayer, not because they were looking for a spectacle, but because they understood that the time of indifference was over. The call is not for the perfect, it's for the willing. The Virgin doesn't ask for heroes, but for humble hearts. She is forming a silent army, hidden, invisible to the eyes of the world, but feared by the forces of evil. And that army begins with you, with your home, with your decision today. Are you willing to fast for love? To pray even if you don't feel anything? To repair what others destroy? If you do, you will be a light. You will be a refuge. You will be part of the shield that will protect many in the days to come. Comment, "I respond to heaven's call," if you too choose to obey with love before it's too late. Just a few days after the last message, the seer awoke in the early morning with his chest heaving, as if someone had touched his heart from within. There was no light in his room. There were no outside sounds, but within his soul an image burned that he couldn't shake, a sky in flames. A line of fire crossed the celestial vault, but it didn't destroy. It was a fire of judgment, a fire of revelation, a purifying fire. The next day during the apparition, Our Lady confirmed what the young man had experienced. In a deep voice, as if speaking through the pain of the world, she said, "You will see fire in the sky. Not like that of war, nor like that of man. You will see a fiery sign that will call you to repentance. It will be the last echo before judgment." The silence that followed those words was total. No one dared to speak. Those present knew it wasn't a metaphor. The Virgin didn't speak in symbols. She was announcing something concrete, visible, undeniable, and those who haven't yet heard her messages might not understand until it's too late. She explained that this sign won't be universal at the same time, but it will be spiritually simultaneous. Each region will see it differently, some as a red lightning bolt crossing the sky, others as a fire suspended over mountains, and still others as a luminous cross that will remain lit for hours. It won't be natural phenomena, it won't be meteorology, it won't be science, it will be God. It will be the finger of heaven pointing at the soul of humanity. Do not fear the fire if you carry light within you. Tremble, those who love darkness, for that fire does not burn, but reveals. It does not destroy, but lays bare. And the soul that is not prepared will fall within itself. The seer saw, in one of the most powerful visions he'd ever had, crowds running under the blazing sky. They didn't know where to go. Some knelt and shouted for forgiveness. Others cursed the light as if they couldn't bear it. And still others, silently, simply stared at the sky and wept with open arms. Not everyone reacted the same way, because the sign won't decide. It will only reveal what's already inside. St. Michael appeared beside the Virgin at that moment. His sword shone brighter than ever, and he spoke with an authority that shook the earth beneath the feet of those present. Judgment doesn't begin when they die. It begins when they are shown the truth. This sign will be the prelude. It won't be punishment, but mercy in its most ardent form. Only those who recognize the sign will find the door. That door will be spiritual, but also geographical. In various regions of the world, refuges of light will begin to rise. Consecrated houses, prayerful communities, small groups where prayer, fasting, and reparation are already being lived faithfully. There, the fire will not enter. There, darkness will have no power. And even though the world trembles, the soul will remain steadfast. Since the revelation of this sign, testimonies have begun to arrive from around the world. Children drawing pictures of blazing skies without having heard anything. Elderly people waking up to prophetic words they don't understand. People who have never prayed and now dream of fire that doesn't burn, but transforms them. It's as if heaven were already preparing hearts for that imminent moment. But the Virgin was clear. Not everyone will see the sign with their eyes. Some will only feel it in their souls, and that will be even stronger. Because the sign doesn't come to entertain. It comes to decide. Many have asked for miracles. This will be your last sign. After this, there will be no more warnings, only fulfillment. What more can heaven do if you keep looking down? The message is clear. It's not about waiting in fear, but about preparing with love. It's not enough to look at the sky. We must look within, because the fire we see above will be a reflection of the fire already burning or extinguished in the interior of every soul. And the Virgin left a detail that shocked the visionary. The fire will be red like the blood of the martyrs, because what comes is also the fruit of what they have sown. But there is still time. They can still change the harvest. This fire, then, is more than a sign. It is the last mirror. It is the last opportunity for profound conversion before the soul's decisions are sealed. Therefore, the Virgin Mary implores us, time and again, not to wait any longer to change. Let us abandon the paths of lukewarmness, of hidden sin, of indifference, because when the sky burns, there will be no more time for self-deception. Comment, I want to be light when the sky burns, if you too choose to prepare today. After announcing the fiery sign that will precede the judgment, Our Lady made it clear that the epicenter of the greatest tremor will not be the outside world, but the Church itself. With a serious face and profound sadness in her gaze, she spoke of an internal purification, a painful but necessary cleansing, because before judgment falls upon the nations, it will begin with the house of God. My son has tolerated betrayal, silence, and lukewarmness, but not forever. The hour has come when the robes of honor will be removed, and the true intentions of the heart will be revealed. The Church will be shaken from within, and only that which is founded on the cross will remain standing. These words weren't merely symbolic. From the first apparitions, the seer had received disturbing visions, faceless priests, empty altars, broken chalices, and a disoriented crowd of faithful searching for someone to guide them and finding no one. In the most recent manifestation, the Virgin confirmed these visions. She explained that many consecrated persons, bishops, priests, religious, had exchanged the gospel for human discourses. They had forgotten the centrality of the Eucharist, had compromised with the truth, and had let the enemy enter through the door of comfort. Many of my people have stopped talking about sin. They no longer call for repentance. They want to please everyone, and they have forgotten that love without truth does not save. They will be judged first, because they knew the light and hid it. This message was accompanied by an intense vision. The seer saw a great cathedral slowly collapsing, not because of a natural earthquake, but because its columns were crumbling from within. It was a symbol of what would happen in many church structures, not because of external persecution, but because of internal spiritual corruption. However, the Virgin did not come to condemn the Church. She came to purify her, to separate the wheat from the chaff, to raise up anew a holy people who live the gospel with fire and truth. Therefore, not all will fall, not all will betray. There will also be a faithful remnant, hidden priests, unknown religious, persecuted communities, who will be the new spiritual pillar of the world. Saint Michael intervened again in this apparition, and his words were like a hammer striking iron. The Church will be purified like gold in the crucible. The false will be destroyed, the idols will fall, and those who have made the altar a business will have to answer before the Lamb. As this message spread, spiritual confirmations began to emerge from around the world. Priests felt an inexplicable discomfort. Religious women had dreams of fire in their convents. Laypeople felt a strong calling to intercede for their pastors, to pray for those who could still awaken. The Virgin made a very specific request. Offer fasting and sacrifice for the lukewarm priests. Pray daily for the unity of the Church in the midst of confusion. Remain firm in doctrine and do not be seduced by novelties contrary to the gospel. This call is not to attack the Church. It is to love her as Jesus loves her, with truth, with firmness, and with redemptive pain. Because purification is not destruction, but opportunity. And those who remain faithful during this time will be the seed of the new spiritual spring that will be born after the storm. The Virgin also warned that a time will come when many will not know whom to trust. There will be confusion among authorities, visible divisions, and contradictory decisions. But those who are anchored in prayer, in the gospel, and in the Eucharist will not be confused. They will be light in the midst of chaos. When everything shakes, remember that my Immaculate Heart will be your refuge. Do not follow the most popular, but the most faithful. Do not seek consolation, but the cross. Do not follow crowds, but the voice of the Good Shepherd. In several visions, the seer saw an image of hope, a small group of faithful, kneeling before a host that shone with supernatural light. All around, everything was in ruins, but they remained steadfast, singing silently, at peace. Our Lady confirmed that this image represents those who undergo purification with fidelity, and even though many may fall, even though betrayal may strike hard, the Church will not be destroyed. It will be reduced, it will be tested, it will be purified. But then it will shine forth with a strength the world has not seen in centuries. Do not fear purification. Do not fear lukewarmness. Do not fear the truth. Do not fear complicit silence. Do not fear fire. Do not fear living without light. This is the time to decide where you stand, whether you are part of those who slumber or those who awaken, whether you are a pillar or a burden, whether you remain silent or whether you pray and act. Because the Church will tremble, but God is raising up his true witnesses, and you could be one of them. Comment, I will remain steadfast in purification if you too decide to be part of the faithful remnant. Stay, because in the next message, the Virgin will reveal the shelters of light and protection that are already being prepared in secret, and how you can create one in your own home. Don't leave yet, because in the next message, the Virgin will reveal what will happen within the Church itself, a purification from within, a spiritual tremor that will shake even those who believe they are standing firm. Stay tuned. Because in the next message, the Virgin Mary will reveal a sign in the sky that will precede the judgment, and that many still ignore. A sign that will burn, but not with human fire. After warning about the purification within the Church, the Virgin Mary did not leave her children in fear. Like every mother, she came to prepare, to console, and to show that heaven does not abandon those who choose to be faithful, because in the midst of the fire there will be refuges, places where evil cannot enter, where prayer will be a shield and light, shelter. In her next apparition, the Virgin revealed something few expected. She said tenderly, "The world chases fortresses made of cement, but my refugees will be of living flesh, of souls aflame with love. True refuge will not be one hidden beneath the earth, but one built in prayer, fasting, and the Eucharist." These words were received with tears. Many imagined refugees as physical structures, secret places in mountains or deserts. But Our Lady surprised everyone by revealing that the first and most powerful refuge is the consecrated heart, followed by the blessed home, and then by communities united by faith and purity. Where two or more gather in my name, I will be there. Where the rosary is prayed daily, the enemy will not be able to reign. Where there is a family altar, the fire will not touch. The seer began receiving images of simple homes, illuminated from within, as if a supernatural flame were pouring out of the windows. They weren't castles, they weren't temples, they were ordinary houses, some made of wood, others of brick. But they all had one thing in common: the presence of God reigned there. The Virgin shared the spiritual characteristics of a true refuge. Family consecration. Each family member must consecrate themselves to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Even if not everyone accepts it, it is enough for one person to pray perseveringly. Home altar. A physical space in the home with a crucifix, an open Bible, holy water, and a Marian image. This corner will be a sign to the guardian angels that this place has been set aside for God. Constant prayer. Especially the daily recitation of the Holy Rosary, the Angelus, and the prayer of reparation to the heart of Jesus. In these homes, the spiritual atmosphere changes. Darkness cannot remain where prayer is constant. Fasting for neighbors. The shelters will not be selfish. Each house must intercede for those around it. Thus, even if only one family prays, the light will begin to spread throughout the neighborhood. Saint Michael also intervened in this revelation, saying, True refugees will be torches in the night, and demons will flee before they enter, not through high walls, but through burning souls, not through armored doors, but through bent knees. Many have already begun to transform their homes, not with alarms or bunkers, but with prayer and worship. In different parts of the world, small communities of faith are quietly emerging. Groups that meet in homes to pray, read the Word, and consecrate themselves together. Without structures, without publicity, just living faith. The Virgin also warned that there will be times when access to the sacraments will be restricted, not because of violent persecution, but because of confusion, division, or abandonment. In those moments, the consecrated home will be the last altar, the last cenacle, where Jesus will manifest himself powerfully through sincere prayer. Children, don't wait for darkness to turn on the light. Start now. Cleanse your homes of everything that doesn't honor God. Bless every corner. Pray aloud. Teach your children to call on my name, because when the world trembles, these homes will be beacons. The Virgin also revealed that many refugees of the soul will arrive in these places. People who didn't believe before, but who will seek comfort when heaven begins to speak more loudly. Therefore she asked that no one close the door. May everyone be willing to welcome, to share, to evangelize with love. Even those who live alone can prepare their home as a refuge. It's not about quantity, but about faithfulness. A widow, a young single person, a sick grandparent. If they pray with faith, if they consecrate their space, their home will be marked from heaven as a spiritual refuge. There are surprising testimonies. Families who never prayed and now hold vigils every Friday. Teenagers who started prayer circles for their schools. Parents who began blessing their children every morning. The heavens are moving and shelters are being born, not in the desert, but in willing hearts. You too can turn your home into one. Start today. Don't wait for the earthquake to build on rock, because shelters won't be improvised during the storm. They're already being marked, one by one. Comment: my home will be a refuge of light if you too want to prepare your home for what's coming. Stay with us, because in the next and final message, the Virgin will reveal the possible last call before the final warning, the message that could seal the history of this generation. The air was thick. The prayers seemed deeper. The visionary felt something different approaching. During the 10th apparition, there were no extraordinary visual manifestations, no lightning, no supernatural light. Only a gentle breeze, a sacred silence. And then, the Virgin Mary descended for the last time in this cycle of messages, and what she said shook the very stones of one's heart. In a slow voice, as if each word had been awaited for centuries, he said, "This is my last call before the warning. After this message, heaven will be silent, until every man's heart is placed before the truth." No one spoke. No one even cried. It was a silence that didn't weigh heavily, but it was piercing. The Virgin looked up at the sky and then at the small group of faithful present, and with a barely audible whisper, she began her final message. It wasn't long, it wasn't embellished, it was an open wound in the form of a word. I have pleaded, I have wept, I have touched hearts, I have multiplied signs. But many do not listen. This will be the last warning before the great mirror of the soul. Heaven will no longer insist. The choice has been handed. Now you must walk with what you have been given. The visionary began to tremble. His body couldn't contain the intensity of the message. He wrote without looking. The words came like fire upon his hand. The Virgin didn't raise her voice, but each sentence fell like an eternal seal. The warning will come like a flash of lightning, like a thief in the night, like a judgment with no visible judge. And then every soul will know, see, feel what has been, what is, and what will be. And in that instant, those who have not opened their hearts to this call will only have the echo of emptiness in response. The message wasn't one of punishment, it was one of absolute revelation. no longer as a mother waiting, but as a mother delivering her child at the crossroads of his destiny. There were no new promises, no dates or calculations, only a warning that could change everything, or change nothing depending on each soul's response. St. Michael appeared but didn't speak. He stood behind the Virgin, his sword on the ground and his eyes closed, as if he had nothing more to say, as if judgment was sealed, and all that remained was for everyone to take a position. The Virgin shared 3 final phrases, each like a hammer blow to the soul. It is no longer time to prepare, but to be prepared. Don't wait for fire, be fire. Where there is a spark of living faith, there my Son will descend. And then, like a wind that retreats without a trace, he disappeared. There was no light, there was no perfume, only a feeling of deep emptiness. Like when someone you love leaves, and you know you won't hear their voice again until everything has been fulfilled. The seer remained silent for hours. He didn't want to speak. He couldn't. He just murmured over and over again, "He's not going to talk anymore. He's not going to talk anymore." From that day on, the messages ceased. The external phenomena stopped. But within thousands of people around the world, something began to burn more strongly. It was as if, in the moment of Mary's silence, the Holy Spirit began to act with purifying fire. Mass confessions, miraculous returns to faith, inner healings, and above all, an unshakable conviction that time is no longer time, and that everything that was said will be fulfilled. Now it's all up to you. Have you consecrated your home? Have you cleansed your heart? Have you prayed for those you love? Have you forgiven in time? Have you lit the rosary candle? Or are you still waiting for another sign? There will be no other. This was the last message, the last word before the great silence. The silence that precedes the thunderous roar from heaven when the warning descends. It won't be the Virgin Mary who will speak then. It will be your own soul, screaming the truth at you. But you can still change. You can still awaken. You can still burn with love. You can still turn your life into a refuge, because if you're reading this, it's because mercy is still upon you. Comment, "I believe in this final call," if you too receive this message as your last chance. Share this message with those you love, with those who are asleep. Because heaven has already spoken. Now the echo is in your hands. Are you ready to continue?